Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Today we will be discussing on the Shariah audit as a gatekeeper of the Islamic financial institution. But before that, what is Shariah audit? According to Bank Negara Shariah Governance paragraph 19.1, Shariah audit refers to a function that provides an independent assessment on the quality and effectiveness of the Islamic financial institutions' internal control, risk management system, governance processes, as well as the overall compliance of the Islamic finance institutions' operations, business affairs, and activities with Sharia. Due to the salient features of the Islamic financial institutions, in particular, prohibitions of riba, gharar, maisir, and the requirement that its activities must be Sharia compliant, the conventional audit may not be sufficient for the Islamic financial institution. More importantly, Sharia audit plays its roles as the third line of defense by giving assurance to the shareholders and stakeholders that all businesses and operations comply with Sharia requirement. To make this thing happen, Sharia auditor need to look at the internal control elements of whether effective and efficient enough to alleviate any possible Sharia breaches. Now let's take a look at the scope of Sharia audit. They have to cover all aspects of the Islamic financial institutions' business operations and activities, including number one, audit of financial statements of the Islamic financial institution. In the event where the audit is undertaken by external auditors, Islamic financial institution has to be satisfied with the scope of audit by external auditor with regard to Sharia audit is comprehensive. Number two, compliance audit on organizational structure, people, process, and information technology application system. And then the last one, review of adequacy of the Sharia governance process. Now let's take a look at the what are the functions that Sharia audit as to safeguard the Islamic financial institution. Point number one, to assess the effectiveness of the Sharia governance structure, process, and management oversight function. The role of Sharia auditor is to provide independent assurance as the third line of defense to Islamic financial institution operation, and they do not only look at the validity of transaction but also look at the internal control element of whether effective and efficient enough to mitigate any possible Sharia breaches. Point number two, to ensure the workflow procedure make the most efficient use of resources by obtaining and making reference to relevant sources, including the Sharia Advisory Council's published rulings, the Sharia Committee's decision, fatwas, guidelines, the Sharia audit results, and the internal Sharia checklist. And then the last point, to ensure prompt reporting on identified Sharia non-compliant activities, events, and transactions. Sharia auditor communicate results of any assessment or finding arising from the Sharia audit to the Board Audit Committee and the Sharia Committee. Also providing recommendations and rectification measures, as well as following up on the implementations by the Islamic financial institution. Conclusively, to recap the Sharia audit functions, number one, to assure the shareholders and stakeholders that all the businesses and operations comply with Sharia. Point number two, to serve as the third line of defense. Number three, to look into the internet control element of whether effective and efficient enough to prevent any possible Sharia breaches. Number four, to emphasize on Sharia compliances to detect many issues. And then number five, to advise the Sharia Committee on the operations by giving a clear and better understanding of the activities. Sharia auditing has a key importance as there is growing awareness among Islamic institutions that every such institution should contribute towards achieving the objectives of the Islamic law, which is the Maqasid Shariah. It is suggested that there is a need to have regular independent Shariah audit in the Islamic financial institution. There is also a need to develop a useful Shariah audit framework to ensure the effectiveness of the goals of Shariah compliance in Islamic financial institution, which in turn can contribute positively to the Ummah at large. Thank you.